guys, Stephanie here. I've got a little bit of a different video for you today. This month we are working on Contending for the Faith from By the Will for God, and I love all the bits and pieces that are included in this kit, and I just wanted to have a place to keep everything all together. So here I have a quick process video for you on how I built my little book. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. This is just the way I went about it, but join me as I walk you through the steps. So I'm starting with 3 pieces of cardboard. I had cut them down to 5x7, 2 pieces of 5x7, and then one that's 7 inches by about 1.5 inches for the spine. And then I ripped some chunks off of both sides of the cardboard because I wanted to create a grungy exposed part of the board. Kind of created a really neat look. And here I have a leftover journaling card from the Tassel kit that we used last month. The gilding and the metals and everything work really good with some of the pieces from that kit too. So I might be doing some mixing and matching there. But here I'm stamping Contending for the Faith from the stamp set that comes with your kit. And I'm stamping it on this page here, and this is actually a piece of paper that I have from one of my recent videos. If you've subscribed to my channel, you may have seen where I dyed a bunch of paper using the flowers petals from my front yard. So this is one of the pages that came from that. So I like the texture and I like the grunginess of it, so I stamped it on here. And then I'm going to add, this is actually the Tombow acid-free glue. I really like to use this glue for just about everything. You could use a tape runner on this as well. Whatever you have handy would work just fine. So I'm just centering it around where I stamped. No need to really measure anything. You just want to make sure you have the title, or I wanted to make sure I had the title centered. And then I'm going to get my scissors and trim off the excess from around the edges so you can't see the paper from behind the frame. Okay, and now I have that ready. I'm going to set that aside. And then I get some of my acrylic paint and I'm adding to the cover of my book. I just filmed the front cover, but I also did the same thing to the back. And I just took a mixture of some grays. I think I added a little bit of like a metallic gold in there as well, but mostly gray and white here. And I used a lot of water to water it down. I didn't want to make it like a really solid thick layer of paint. I wanted to add to that grungy look I was going for, kind of rustic look, by being able to see a little bits of the cardboard through the paint. So I didn't want it to be super perfect. So I was sure to blend the colors together and add more water in there as well. So here I'm taking one of the stencils included this month's kit, and I am using some of that darker gray that I had here, and I'm just carefully painting the acrylic over the stencil. Now this created a really subtle look. If you wanted something stronger, more defined, then I would use Distress Oxides or another type of ink. But I went ahead and used the colors I had because I wanted it to be really subtle. I didn't want it to pop out too much. So here I'm just dabbing it on with my paintbrush. And then here I have some Iced Spruce Distress Oxide. And here I was doing something where I added a whole bunch of water in with my ink, and I'm pressing it along the edge of my cardboard because I wanted it to drip down. I wanted to create these really neat grungy look with the water and the ink and the paint kind of dripping down the front of my book. And you know, you kind of have to play around with it. You might have to add some more water, add some more ink, but just kind of go back in there, press it down, rub it off your brush, and kind of tap the cardboard down to knock the paint and the water to get it to slide down your card. But that created kind of a neat texture as well. And then here I took my Vintage Photo Distress Oxide, did the same thing, smushed it onto my palette there, and I'm going back in with a smaller paintbrush and adding some water to my ink, picking it up with my paintbrush, and I'm going around the edges of where I tore off that cardboard and kind of making a rustic, kind of like a rusty look to the edge. And I really like how that turned out. That was a total last minute thought. Wasn't expecting to really do that, but I really loved how it worked out. It kind of melted the edges where I tore, where the water is kind of blending in, and it really added a lot to it. So I'm really glad I did that. So I just kind of played around with it, tried to make it random, did a little more here, a little more there, and occasionally going back in with my paintbrush into the water and spreading it around a little bit more to kind of blend it into the acrylic paint. And the water actually reactivated some of my acrylic paint, and I got to blend it in really well. And I did notice that it would dry later, so there were a couple times that I went back in after that dried some and added a little bit more paint in some of the areas that I wanted to stand out. I didn't want it to be one even look. I wanted some areas to be darker, some areas to be lighter, so I just kind of played around with it, and I had a lot of fun with it. So really happy with how it turned out. It was a lot of fun to do, and I did this on the front as well as the back. So here I pick up my vintage photo Distress Oxide again, and I'm just taking my little dauber and going around the edges really gently with some of the ink. I cut down some of the white edges off of the die cut because it really adds a frame to it, and I wanted my piece to blend into the rest of the book a little bit more, so I just carefully went around the edges to soften them up some. So I glued down the title, kind of position the little piece of the die cut there, and then I got the little horse piece. I like that one, so I stuck that on there as well. That one is also antiqued around the side. And then I have these really fun little antique metal gears I got off of Amazon, super cheap, bag of like 100 of them. So I will be sprinkling those all throughout my kit, but they're really fun to add on there for some texture and a little extra pop here and there. So here we're going to be gluing everything together to make the book itself. So I did go back in, I didn't record it. I added some of the gray paint, as you can see, to the interior edge of the back of the book and the front, because I'm going to be adding paper in there later. So what I have here is a big long chunk of the coordinating fabric you can also pick up that goes along with this kit. I cut a piece down and I made sure I had plenty of fabric on both sides, so when I folded it up, it could, I had a thick enough piece to go along the back side on both the back and the front. So I'm just using my glue, pressing it down really well. Also want to make sure you have a gap between your spine and the back and the front piece, because you want to make sure you have enough space to fold it up and down. If you put it right smack next to each other, it's not going to fold and close as well as you want it to. So you want to leave that gap. Also, I didn't film it, but I left I put 2 slits at the top, so I was able to fold the fabric down to get them really nice and secured around the edge. Also, I ended up fiddling around with it some because I realized I should have put some of my die cuts and title piece on the front of my book after I did the binding itself. So here I'm kind of messing around with it some because I don't want my fabric to cover any of the embellishments on the front of my book. But all in all, it worked out really well. You just want to make sure you give your glue enough time to dry before you move on to your next step. So this is how the book turned out. I did not record the binding of everything inside because that was a complete learning curve for me, and I did not need to be teaching anybody how to do that. So anyway, so I completely covered everything. We've got, put the book together. We've got this stuff on the side. And then, of course, I added a little floofy bookmark thing on there. So I bound everything. If you open it up, you can see I cut some of the paper from the Buy the Well for God kit with the paper, and I did 2 covers on the back, and the fabric, you can see I cut it right here, glued it over on the side and the top. And then for this, I used one of these hole punches for the binding here down the center where everything is. Where's the center here? Like right here. You can see everything is sewn inside. So I've got 2 sections. Obviously, I was not perfect, but it's fine. So I love the edges, that it's rough and chunky. Luckily, the fact that I didn't know what I was doing helps with the fact that it looks so mismatched. But I have some pages inside here that I've got, just random cardstock, colored paper. This is some paper that you guys saw me color in a previous YouTube video where I dyed it with flowers. And then I've just got some random pieces inside here. It's a fun piece. So just lots of different pieces inside. And then the outside, I have the little floofy with the Tassel Bob kit that we have. Attach some little gears. And that one, all I did was, for that, all I did was I put the string down on the inside, and then I tucked it underneath and tied a knot in the center there. And then it comes down like that. So it hangs down the side just like that. And then my binding was really messed up, so I have the fabric here, and then I cut a smaller sheet just to cover it up, so because I did not like the way it looked there. So yeah, all in all, I'm really happy with how it turned out. But yeah, I had a lot of things I could do differently next time, but I'm really happy with it, and I'm excited to see where it goes for this kit. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you guys find a fun way to work through this kit this month together, and I will see you all soon. Bye!